one that's both simple and very deep and complicated. And that is, what is dunder name and what values can it contain? So let's start off talking about modules. If I import a module, if I say import mymod, then Python is going to look for mymod.py, starting the current directory, and it's going to load it up. So let's create a mymod.py. Here we go. I've already started in my buffer. I can say x equals 100 and def hello name. So here return f of hello name. Fantastic. What a great module. And so now, once it's done writing, I'm going to say here, I'm going to say import mymod. And now we see that I have dir of mymod. And the two variables that I defined, hello and x, in the file, they were global variables. But from outside, we see them as attributes, mymod.hello, mymod.x. Fantastic. But you'll also see that I have mymod.dundername, mymod.dundername. And that is going to be the string mymod. This is the way that the module sort of identifies itself. If I say import abcd, then that module's name, dundername, is going to be abcd. So if I import abcd, then abcd.dundername is going to be the string abcd. So far, so good. But does it work the other way around also? That is to say, I know that hello and x are attributes on the module object mymod. Thus, they are global variables inside of my module file, mymod.py. Well, dundername is also an attribute on mymod. Is it also a global variable inside of my module file? Let's take a look. I'm going to say here something like this. I'm going to say print mymod. Oh, sorry. I'm going to say dundername equals dundername. Now, you might think it's kind of weird that this is going to execute when I import the module, but that's totally normal because the first line, x equals 100, only works if we're executing the module as we import it, and line 4, def hello, only works if we're executing the module as we import it. So line 8 will also execute. That's right, modules are executed as they are imported. So I'm now going to say here, I'm going to go back and say import mymod, and it's going to do nothing. It's going to do nothing because you can only import a module once in each session of Python. After that, import sort of ignores you. So I'm going to use a trick. I'm going to say import lib, and import lib reload of mymod, and that forces the reload. And now we're going to see it printed out, and it says, what do you know? Dundername equals mymod, meaning that dundername is indeed the same both mymod.dundername and as a global variable inside of the module. Which raises the question, why do I care? Why do I care at all? How's this interesting? Well, let's run it now from the command line. I'm going to say now python3 mymod.py. Now, mymod is totally legitimate Python. It's kind of boring, but it's legitimate. And look what's going to happen now. It's going to say dundername equals dundermain, a different string. So this is the first thing that we have to keep track of. So this means if I import abcd, then abcd dundername is going to be abcd. Very good. But if I run abcd.py from the command line, then dundername is the string dundermain. That is the first primary namespace that Python sets up. When you run a program, the first file that's loaded gets a special dundername of dundermain. That means it's the first root namespace that Python is creating. And everything is then created within that. And then those have their own imports. So if you do imports or variable definitions, then they're going to be basically main.whatever, main.x, main.hello, whatever it's going to be. Then they do imports. That's defining additional variables. They then have their own attributes, their own attributes, their own attributes. So the fact that dundername here can sort of be two-faced. It can either represent the name of the module that's being loaded or be dundermain if it's the main thing. That allows our modules to operate either as standalone programs or as modules. But how can they tell the difference? How can they know when one is happening or the other is happening? I can have an if statement. If dundername equals dundermain. Let's put this off. I'll have the print always, even though it's considered like bad behavior to do that. Print running interactively. So now what we can do is we can say something like this. If I run it now from the command line, we'll see that dunder name equals dunder main, and it's running interactively. But if I go back here and I reload it using import lib reload, we're going to find that it's silent. I mean, it's not going to be silent because we printed out dunder main, right? Dunder name, but it's not going to say running interactively. So you can use this as a way of distinguishing between when a module is being run as a standalone program and when a module is being imported. If it's imported as dunder name, by definition, can't be dunder main. Even if the module loads itself. If I were to have here import my mod within my mod, that would work. That would work just fine. But it would basically load the same file twice. Once as dunder main and then once as my mod. Now it turns out that modules are not the only place where dunder name is defined. It's defined actually in a whole lot of places in Python. I can in fact just go to Jupyter here and say, hey, what's your dunder name? And it'll say dunder main. Why? Because this is the first program that I'm running. This is the main, so to speak, namespace in my system. It gets wilder. What if I say here, class foo, def init, self x equals x, and I'm going to say here f equals foo of 10. And then I say f, okay, so I can, vars of f, it's going to show me all the attributes on f. So far, so good. What if I say foo dunder name? What is the name of the namespace for foo? And sure enough, that's going to be the class foo. Meaning that classes are modules, or because classes are modules without external files, their behavior is very, very similar to that of modules. And so if modules have a dunder name, then classes also have a dunder name. And so you can always get the name of a class from its dunder name. Right? So dunder name is always available. It's always a global variable available to you. And its main use, so to speak, its main use is to distinguish between whether you're in the first initial namespace or in a loaded namespace. But you can use it for some other clever stuff like I just did here with a class, if you ever need to get a string from a class to indicate its name somehow.